students, welcome to ECEDU. This is your biology session. We're going to talk about what we studied yesterday and the furthermore chapter. Yesterday we talked about diversity in living organisms. We talked about the living world. We talked about how there are different organisms and how there are different systems made up so that we can classify them. Today we're going to further read them. Okay, so let's talk about the diversity in living organisms. If you see, we talked about how many organisms are already there on this planet, and there's so many that are still being discovered by the scientists. Although there are few that are getting extinct too, but we're going to talk about how it is so difficult for us to read and learn and identify every single organism if we read them individually. If you read individual characteristic of every single organism that is present on the planet, it would really be chaotic, difficult, and would make a mess out of it. So what scientists did was, scientists talked about how the organisms, first it says that we cannot remember or even try and remember is the different type of organisms that are present on the planet. Therefore, the scientists developed the techniques that are to identify, naming, grouping of various organisms. Now, if I say about identifying, what is identifying? When you see an organism which has 4 legs and is barking, the first thought that comes to your head is that that organism is a dog. Or if you see an organism with 4 legs, similar structure, but instead of barking, they are meowing. So you instantly know that it's a cat, right? So these are the forms in which we identify an organism, the way they look morphologically. So morph is how something or an organism looks like. So we're going to talk about those. Next, we're going to talk about naming. Now, if you see, same thing. Even in India, it's called different in different regions. Let it be vegetables, a lot of vegetables. For example, onion in North India is called pyaj. But at the same time, if you talk about onion in Maharashtra, it's called kanda, right? So if we talk about naming organisms, it's going to be the same. If we name them generally, we're going to name them according to the regional languages that we have, which is going to be very, very chaotic. So if a person doesn't know that onion is called kanda in Maharashtra, would go there and would not understand what kanda is, right? So it's going to be very chaotic. To solve all those problems, scientists came out with a solution of naming an organism, standardizing it, and letting it be the same name globally. So if you say the the biologically scientific name of an organism, this is going to be same for same organism on the entire globe, right? The third thing that we're going to talk about is grouping of various organisms. Now, why are we grouping organisms? You see, like I just said, if you try and talk about them individually means that you're going to talk about a husky dog differently, a Labrador differently, a German Shepherd differently, a Chihuahua differently, a pug differently, which means even if they're all dogs, you're going to learn about them individually. So instead of learning that an organism that has 4 legs and barks is a dog, you're going to learn a German Shepherd is this huge, looks like this, has pointed ears, a Chihuahua has a pitched voice. So these are the characteristics that we're going to learn instead of categorizing them into one group. So it is very, very important to group first the organisms, then study about them collectively so that it can be a systematic method. First, it's going to be easier to identify the organisms because we will group them, right? And third thing, it would make our work and the scientist work really, really easy. So instead of when you find a new organism, so instead of doing the research from the starting, you will always have groups that you can identify from. So the group that has most similarities with that organism can be put into the same group, right? Then there are, what are the bases of identifying, grouping and naming an organism? There are similarities and differences. Now, for example, if you see an organism, like I just said, have 4 legs that is meowing. So you will know that it's a mammal. First thing first, you will know it's a mammal. Is it a dog? Is it barking? If it doesn't bark, then it's a different characteristic. So you will look into different organism. For example, you will look at the organisms that are meowing, right? So they're going to be different organisms that meow, that makes a similar voice. Then into those groups, you're going to look at four-legged meowing organisms. Then you're going to say that this is a cat, right? So what we're trying to do here is, we're trying to see the similarities and the differences. You're going to look at both before you identify an organism and put it into some group, okay? Now coming to systematics. Now students, we actually studied about this yesterday, but this class I am going to talk about them in detail so that you can understand the difference between systematics, taxonomy and classification. So systematic talks about organisms that are supported in their diversities and relationship among them. So what I'm trying to say here is that systematics will not only talk about the organism that we've found, we've identified, we've grouped. We're going to talk about the diversity that is supported by. Diversity is the environment that they live in. For example, if I find a cockroach, so I will know that they live in a hole. Or if I find a earthworm, so I will know that it lives in the soil, right? So we're going to attach the organism to their diversity along with their relationship among them, which means an organism that lives in the mud, what is their relationship with the other organism living in the same diversity. So here we're looking at relationship between the organisms, right? Other than that, this term was coined by Linus. He's the sir, he coined the term and he wrote a book which was named as Systema Naturae. He also wrote another book that we're going to talk about. In Systema Naturae, he's actually talking about systematics and he's coined a few organisms and named them, right? Other than that, it also deals with the relationship of various groups and organisms reflecting the evolutionary relationship. Now kids, if you see, every organism that is present on this planet has an evolutionary relationship. What is evolutionary? Evolutionary is the changes that come into your body in accordance to your diversity. As in, you know, we were once nomads, we were chimpanzees, then we turned into nomads. Nomads are the people who used to live in the forest and used to do agriculture, used to eat plants or other animals, right? So we were those, and now we're in a civilization. We have a particular system, we have a government, we have jobs and we have schools. So we're very systematic now. So this is evolution. This is how a man evolved. So in systematics, not only the relationship with diversities and among themselves, we're going to also talk about the relationship between various organisms and how they've evolved from each other. Why are we studying the evolution of every organism in relation with each other, kids? This is because if you might have heard how the earth came into existence, the first thing that comes into our mind is Big Bang theory. So what happened in the Big Bang theory was there was this blast from where earth came into existence. The first organism that was ever found on earth was bacteria. And scientists say that every other organism that came after bacteria are somehow related to that one bacteria that came into existence. Which means every dinosaur that ever existed and every human being that will exist in the future are all related to that one bacteria. So what are scientists trying to study in systematics is how an organism as small as bacteria, one single celled organism, turned into a complex intelligent organism like human beings. So we're trying to study the relationship between everything so that we can come up with a theory or come up with a clearance of organisms on this planet. We will understand organisms clearly. We will know why an organism behaves in a certain way, why they don't. Right, and it is very, very important because we are living on the same planet. So if we have an understanding with the organisms that are around us, it would make our survival better, easier, which is like a it's like living together in a house. If you live with your parents, you need to understand them. If you live with your siblings, you need to understand them. If you live in a hostel with your friends, again, you need to understand them. So we're sharing the same plane with so many organisms. That is, it is very important for us to understand those organisms so that the relationship between us can be better and easy. Now, kids, we're going to talk about the term systematics. Okay, kids, now like I said, there are three terms that we're going to talk about today. This is systematics, taxonomy, and classification. Although when you hear these terms, it is usually as if we're talking about the same thing. Okay, initially every word almost is like a synonym for each other, although it is not true. Taxonomy, systematics and classification mean entirely different things. Not entirely because they're related to the same field, but that does not mean you can interchangeably use them, because every term here has a meaning, right? And this was actually said by G. Simpson, who said that taxonomy, systematics and classification are in the same field but mean entirely different things. So that makes them entirely separate fields, right? Now coming to systematics. Systematics, like I just said, is the diversity of organisms with comparison to their evolutionary relationship. So we're going to talk about comparative analysis of different organisms that are already in the diversity. Other than that, we're going to talk about the evolutionary relationship. This is what we study in systematics. Other than that, the evolutionary relationships are based on anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and ecology, which means we try and study every organism deeply enough to understand how their anatomy works, how their physiology works, how their biochemistry works, and the ecological relationship, right? So that we can understand the organism clearly. Like we have done enough researches to know how a cockroach works. We know the anatomy, physiology, we know biochemical reactions going in them. Right, so it is very, very important. There are so many organisms that are already been studied. There's earthworm, there's cockroach, there's so many plants that we've already studied. There's flowering plants, gymnosperm, angiosperms. There are a lot of organisms that we already know of, but like I said, there's so many organisms that are still being discovered every single day. So it is very, very important to keep studying those organisms, and these are the bases that we study those organisms on. Now, the classification is actually said to be a subtopic. It is a subtopic of what? Systematics. Because in classification, we only deal with ordering organisms into group. Like I said, we need to name them, group them, and then we need to learn the relationships, evolutionary included. Right? So, in classification, what we do is only group them. Like husky, German Shepherd, Chihuahua, Labrador, Pug are all grouped as dogs. Black cat, white cat, brown cat, colorless cat, every cat is a cat, right? There's so many types of tigers. There's white tiger, there's a normal tiger. Leopards have different categories too. Humans are so many types, right? There are humans that have entirely different structures according to their origin, right? Because this is not one chimpanzee that we came out from, right? So what happens is we understand the grouping of organisms in the topic known as classification. We group organisms according to a lot of principles. Now talking about the principles that I just said. Okay, like I just told you, if you find some organism around you, irrespective of what that organism is, right? How will you categorize it into any group? You must need to have a procedure or a principle, right? So taxonomy is that principle and that procedure for us so that we can group those organisms in any sort of groups. what we try and do is we take certain based functions, that if this organism has 4 legs, it's a mammal, right? If it barks, it's a dog. If it has pointed ears and barks louder and is comparatively a bigger dog, it might as well be German Shepherd, right? So we try and group them according to principles that we have, and there's an entire procedure of grouping organisms. How do we group organisms is something that we'll study further in the chapter. Another very, very important person is John Ray. John Ray actually coined the term species. What is species? Homo sapiens, humans, are a species. We are a species of, that comes under mammals, right? We're mammals, we're related to animals, but we're intelligent, we're smarter than them, we're evolved than them, right? So the species name is entirely different. A dog cannot be a Homo sapien, right? So the species term in itself was coined by John Ray. Other than that, what is a species? Species are morphologically similar organism. Again, the word morphologically here. What is morphologically? Morphologically is how something looks on the outside. For example, every human looks the same, right? The structure of the face, the placement of the eyes, nose, mouth and ears is exactly the same, right? We will have shoulders which will be broader than our face. Then we're going to have legs and limbs and a torso. Okay? So what happens here is that we're trying to figure out the organisms that are morphologically similar. For example, if you find a person or an organism on a street, you will instantly know if it's a human or is it a dog or a cat, right? Because we exactly know how a human, a dog or a cat looks like, because we've seen the morphological structure of those organisms. Then he tried to differentiate between genus and species. Now what is a genus and what is a species, right? Let's talk about genus first. Let's say cats. There are big cats like tiger, leopard, and there are small cats, smaller ones, right? But they are all cats. We usually call them all cats. Every organism that are related to cats are coined into a bigger term known as cats. That is the genus. That is the basic understanding that there are cat grouped together, right? But then those cats have different types too, right? There's big cats, there's small cats, and then big cats have different types too. So to specify one type of organism, for example, if you're trying to identify an Egyptian cat, Egyptian cats are usually black and have yellow eyes, right? So this is how we identify them. So an Egyptian cat will have a specific species, right? It would have a specific species. Like I said in common language, that is, it's an Egyptian cat. Similarly, every other cat will have their specific name too. I cannot call a tiger a leopard because I know that specific species is tiger. So species is a very, very specific word, and genus is an overall species that are related to each other in some way. Okay. Other than that, John Ray also coined monocotyledons and dicotyledons. It's a botany topic. Monocotyledon and dicotyledon. This is about the cotyledons that are present in a seed. Now coming to systematics, like I just said, Systema Naturae was developed by Lenin. So he also, other than defining systematics, Linnaeus also defined 4,326 animal species in his book. That is a lot of species, but they're all animal species, right? So Systema Naturae has amount of animal species that were discovered by him. He also named these species. Other than that, now coming to the second book that he wrote is Species Plantarium. In it he talked about plant species, that 5,900 plant species that he discovered and named. Coming to cladistics. What is cladistics? Cladistics is classifying organisms according to their histological order, showing evolutionary branches. Now, if you try and understand, I mean, there's this chimpanzee. Okay, so he tried to make himself into a nomad. Not all nomads turned into humans, and not all chimpanzees turned into humans. So there's also one species that remained chimpanzees, then there's other organisms that turned into nomads, half humans, right? So if you see the evolutionary makeup of, if you've ever seen that diagram where there's a monkey, then he's growing up into a human being. So this is that middle stage. Now, this will go into a human, but it will not only make a one type of human, because according to this, like I just said in the last class, there's this thing called adaptation, right? So organisms usually adapt. So there are 3 humans that I made. This is also a human. Again, a third human. But according to where these men or humans were present at that time of evolution, makes up how their skull structures were. If you look up to this thing, you will know there are different type of humans too, according to their skull structures. The different skull structures according to the places that they live. There's Latin, there's Persian, there's a lot of other human organisms that we don't know about because they're extinct. Now we have only one type of human, but even if after all this, we can actually identify the origin of a person by looking at their skull structures. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. The cladistics talk about the evolutionary branches in an organism. Other than that, cladistics led to the identification or the start of a new branch of science which is known as biosystematics or new systematics. Now, what is biosystematics and new systematics? These are the branches of systematics that came out of evolutionary relationships of different organisms. New systematics, neo-systematics, biosystematics. All 3 of them mean exactly the same, right? Other than that, what is the basic concept? The basic concept is that every organism present on this planet is a result of evolution, right? So what we say here is that species are a product of evolution. Okay, we also take in consideration about the different fields of biology. How do we know it's a result of evolution? Because we have different fields that tell us, that we already have such fields in biology that tell us about the relationship of different organisms in respect with their evolution. This term were developed by Huxley. Okay, very important name. Kids, you need to always learn the name of the scientist, because it's very important from your exam point of view, also because they increase your understanding towards the concept. You can actually correlate a concept with a scientist. Now coming to neo-systematics. It's the same topic, neo-systematics, new systematics and biosystematics. In this field of systematics, we talked about a lot of things, but main concepts that came out of this study was that species are not isolated. Now, I just told you we all came out from a single bacteria. Now, this has to have a single or a lot of relationships that we have with that bacteria, right? Now, because we're all related, all organisms that are present on earth at this point of second are all related to that one bacteria that existed once, right? So no species can ever be isolated because we're all related. If you look at it properly, we say that reptiles and amphibians. After reptiles, birds came, right? So reptiles had 4 limbs, 2 legs and 2 hands. But when we came into birds, the first 2 were still there. If you look at it properly, you will see their bone structures is something like this. Okay, and there are wings. So it's just a modification. It does not mean that birds do not have frontal limbs. They do have it, just a modified version of it. So if you study biology clearly, kids, you will understand that every organism that exists or has ever existed, we are all related. We might be closely related to chimpanzees, and we might be very, very closely related to our family. But at the end of the day, if we talk about the bigger picture here, we all organisms that have ever existed or will ever exist in the future are all related, right? Then how do we talk about this? So the main stress after this discovery that species are never isolated, the stress mainly came upon subspecies and population. So the different populations that are studied. Okay, so there's this flock of bird that flew from somewhere to Sahara Desert, right? So we're going to study that population, that subspecies, that specifically migrated, right? So there are going to be a lot of birds from that same species, but maybe they did not migrate, so they became a subspecies, like that. So that actually gave rise to, because we're reading about the stress upon population, it became a new branch of systematics which is known as population systematics. And in this neo-systematic study, we actually take statistical data to understand how primitiveness and advancement of a species work. Now, what is primitiveness and what is advancement? Primitiveness is how, primitive or old, if you call it, is the organism. Primitive organisms are usually less developed, like like prokaryotic organisms. They are primitive. They're not that developed. They're not at all structured or complex. They're simple organisms. They're primitive organisms. Now coming to advancement. Advancement is when a primitive organism evolves into a better version of themselves. Like humans have evolved into a better version, and we're still evolving, right? We're still evolving into a better version of ourselves, but this is, at this second, I am an advanced version of a chimpanzee, right? So a chimpanzee was a primitive form of me or any other human being. We are an advanced form, right? Now kids, in the next session, we're going to talk about classification. What is classification? We're going to talk about how organisms are classified into specific groups. Why they are classified, how they are classified, how do we name them. This is all we're going to learn in the next session. I hope I see you guys there. Thank you.